right. Good morning, Erica. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Kel. I'm doing better. My morning started a little less chaotic than yours. I said you're going to have to tell this story on our Facebook Live. So,
Yeah, I was in a totally different outfit, and then I decided to rock this. My son I was doing cleaning his bottles, and he was crawling around behind me, and he grabbed it's a soda can, and the flavor is sangria. There's no alcohol in it, but he grabbed it and it somehow dropped it like perfectly, and it fell and it started spinning and exploding, and his whole face is red. My whole kitchen on my white walls everywhere is red, and I had a brand new white jacket on that is also very red right now, so I'm hoping a little bleach will do it some good.
I'm so sorry.
But I got up to clean bottles and get a cup of coffee before we jumped on here, and I ended up not doing all of that.
So here I am.
Here I am. That's right.
It was one of those toddler mornings, I think, is what it was.
It was. He was just like curious and getting into everything, and it backfired. So it scared poor little dude. It scared the bejesus out of him. I mean, and those of you, I think he's been on a live before, but he has white hair, and so his poor little hair is still red too. So
he's gonna look like that kid. What is it on The Incredibles or whatever that movie is with the red hair?
Yeah,
Oh.
A little stressful in the moment, but nice to be able to laugh about it now. So.
Yeah. Sorry, girl. Those mornings but they're good stories, right? Those are the story mornings. Down the road. One day he'll be able to look at this video. That time he sprayed sangria all over your walls.
That's right.
When you're cleaning your kitchen years later and you find red stain that you didn't know was still there.
Yeah. I am feeling very readiness group today. I have my new swag shirt on, which is awesome that you guys got me. And I'm going to give a plug to Ben Westcott, who is one of the firefighters that trains with us. He got us these, and I love it. I use it almost every day now. So thank you,
yes,
Ben, for that.
Ben, if you listen to this, if you can mention the woman who made these in the comments, because I know we're on her Facebook page now, but she does those as a business, and they're incredible. We love them.
Yeah. He, in fact, and she is a first responder wife, so it's nice to kind of support that community. But if he doesn't see it, if I get to it first, I will mention her. So,
awesome.
Yeah, very cool. Well, welcome. We are excited to be here. It is 2022, y'all, and we are ready for the new year. We have exciting things going on and happening. But just so you guys know, Readiness Group is a training and development company who really works to build cultures of resiliency and well-being from the top down and the bottom up and kind of all the way around. And so I am Dr. Kelly Guidry, and I am a doctorate of counseling and counselor education. And I'll let Erica introduce herself.
And I am Dr. Erica Lee. I'm a doctor of physical therapy, so I represent the more physical side of well-being and resiliency.
Yes, it's exciting to be able to have that blend, because we really get to come at this from a mind-body approach, and it just works so well together. So
it's so dang important, I mean, we're just so far beyond having things in corners, and only looking at mental health and only looking at physical health. It all ties together so much, and it's more and more research is coming out about that. So it's an important thing to us.
Absolutely, yeah. So we are here today. We're going to talk about routines, not resolutions. This is a really big time of year for people. You'll hear people talking about what is your New Year's resolution, and let's just start, Erica. Why do you think it's important to maybe rethink the concept of a resolution?
Well, I think it's good timing on our part to have this today on, what is the date today? The 14th? Mm-hmm. My watch is, there you go, on the 14th of January, because by now, I think 2 weeks in, a lot of people have already lost steam on those resolutions, right? We set these big lofty goals, and I'm a huge fan of that. I know there are some people who are like, oh, the resolution crowd. I'm a huge fan of that hope that resolutions brings. I think taking that time to dream about bettering yourself or meeting a goal or chasing an adventure or whatever it might be is a really cool thing to be able to do. However, a lot of times we don't take the time to arrange our lives around this resolution that we want to accomplish. And so therefore it doesn't fit, right? And when it doesn't fit, it lasts about a week and then we get overcome by events and life and kids and COVID and everything else right now that's going on.
Yes.
And so we lose the space for it. And when you lose the space for it, it just doesn't happen. And so this concept, I think, of routines, not resolutions, and maybe it's routines with resolutions is a better way to say it. I don't know. Because I do think you have to have an inspiring thing in mind, not just a routine, because that gets boring as well. You have to have that inspiration in mind, but then you've got to create this space to support it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I think resolutions, one of the things when I hear that word, it sounds so finite. Like, okay, I have my resolution, as opposed to routine that can be molded and adjusted. And I think that's where people, when I see people not succeed at those resolutions that they've made, it's usually because it was a really big, lofty goal, and they didn't find ways to make it manageable in their day to day to achieve that towards what they were looking for.
And I think, you think about it, resolutions often come out of what has provided us the most stress throughout the following year, or is currently providing us the most stress right now through the holidays or whatever into the new year. And so we tend to go, okay, New Year's coming, I'm going to fix that so I don't have that stress in my life anymore, right? Well, there's a reason that was providing you so much stress. And that's because your life is set up in a way that's not allowing you to focus on that specific area, whether that's your health or it's drinking too much or it's whatever. You're not, or relationships, whatever it might be, you have not created the space in your life to concentrate on that specific thing. And therefore it feels like it's fallen off the plate. And so therefore you can't focus on it. It provides you stress. And then by the end of the year, you're like, I'm going to fix that next year. And so we set this resolution. And often what we do, right, is it's on off switch. We're like, okay, if I'm going to get in shape, I'm going to the gym 5 days a week and I'm going to make this happen. Well, you don't have the bandwidth in your life for 5 days a week, then it's not going to happen. Just period dot. And so it's really about the journey. And I love that you talked about routines being moldable, because it's really about the journey of developing this routine into your life that inspires and motivates you as well as holds you accountable. It's got to be both, which I think is why the resolution is so important, because the resolution is the inspiration. It's what you want to accomplish. So you don't want to set up a routine that's boring and that, you're just clicking things off a list that you don't care about and that you're supposed to do. But you want to set up a routine that's a good balance of something you need to do to accomplish this, but also something that inspires you to keep up with. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I was working on, we do a newsletter for the first responder community each month. And I was working on ways to kind of build in routines. And there's a concept out there, and I want to give credit to who it is because I don't ever want to steal from anybody, but I can't think of his name off the top of my head. I'll put it in the chat. But he talks about the 3 A's to making routines happen. And the first A is appealing. And that's what you're talking about with this idea of inspiration and having the motivation. So if you have something you want to do or you think you should do, but it's really not appealing to you, then are you going to do it? And so you've got to find a way, I think, to make these things that you want to make routine appealing. There's got to be a benefit to that. Do you have any tips or tricks on ways of making something more appealing than it initially sounds?
Yes, I think that is so important because it's so individual, right? Like, what is appealing to me? And it's not just what I'm trying to accomplish. It's also my personality is totally different than what's appealing to my husband. Even if we are trying to accomplish the same goal of, let's say, weight loss, because that is one of our goals right now. If we're trying to get that in step, what is appealing to me to get there is totally different than what's appealing to him. I like planning things out and measuring success and kind of seeing the progress. he likes being social. Like that's his thing, right? He's not going to measure anything unless it's something easy. He just gets on a scale and he's done. But if he makes it social, where he goes to workouts with a group of people that he can be social with, totally different thing. That's appealing to him. Not so much me, because I'm more of an introvert. I'm more about the planning and the seeing success. He's more about, who can I interact with when I do this? And so I think it really, one, you need to know who you are and what drives you. And what is that motivating force that would make this appealing to you, and create it in that way. Don't do what society says you're supposed to do, because you're not society. You're your own unique individual, and you need to know that. And I think the second, Kellen, maybe you want to talk about this, is kind of knowing, linking that routine to your why. And the why for now might be that resolution, but make sure that resolution lines up with your greater why, right? So Matt and I have talked about it. We're in our 40s. We're starting to have to do fitness and health for legitimate health reasons, not just vanity, right? And so we talk about it, and our big why is to continue to have adventure with each other as we grow old. We want to, when our kids move out, we want to go hike Yellowstone and have really incredible adventures. We're not going to be able to do that if we're, completely out of shape and have health issues. And so that's our big motivation that's encouraging us. And so I think knowing that why is really important. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, so I think that goes back to, what is my bigger picture, and this is what the resolution is all about. This is why people do resolutions. I want to be better here. I want to be better here. And it's kind of that constant evaluation of self, right? And if you don't have a why, which some people have not ever given a lot of consideration until I really got into this work, it's not something I ever sat down and thought about, I wonder why I do what I do,
Yeah.
And then when you start to really get into it, and you get curious about your own why. By the way, curiosity is a part of my why, so it's a big thing. You'll hear me say it a lot, but that curiosity and just kind of figuring out, okay, why do I do what I do? And that gives you this big picture, and it makes it easier to then take it down and scale it into a routine, into something that, so like for Matt saying, all right, I'm going to join a gym that gives me the social aspect, or I'm going to go to a class that allows me to have conversations socially. Where for you, it's okay, I'm going to buy myself a planner, I'm going to write it down. But you are both getting to the big picture of, and that's what James Clear talks about in Atomic Habits, of this is the 1%. What am I doing that's 1% different or better to get me to my big picture, right? And that big picture is that why. That's your grounding force. And whys change. So know that too, right? All of this is very fluid.
Yes. Yeah. And I think once you kind of lock in your why, and I mean, locking in your why, I don't think you ever lock in your why. Like you said, it changes, it's fluid. But once you kind of have a general picture of what you want that to be for yourself, I think then, sorry, I've struggled with COVID the last week, so I'm just going to cough through this. But once you kind of have a general idea of what your why is, then setting a smaller goal that would be a resolution. So for this year, my goal to get me closer to my why in January 1st, 2023 is this, right? And so then you look at that and you go, okay, I've got a whole year. Is it realistic for me to contribute, 50% of what I have to offer to this specific goal when I have 9 million other things that need attention? Not realistically, right? And so what you need to do, or what tends to work, I guess, is, I don't want to say what you need to do, but what tends to work is finding a tiny habit, right? Something very small that gets you one step closer. And those things begin to compound on themselves. So people are like, I'm not going to get anywhere by doing a 5-minute walk. Well, you'll be surprised how much that increases your energy and helps you on the days you do have more time to contribute more to it, right? Sharing a tiny habit that you enjoy. So you could consider it a celebration or a habit that brings you joy, whatever you want it to be. For instance, yesterday we cleaned up our backyard because it was warm outside. Not something I look forward to doing, but the celebration came in. We sat outside and hung out on the back porch as a family, right? So that was the celebration. It's pairing a tiny habit with that celebration that keeps you motivated to want to do it again, right?
Yeah, I really like that. Yeah. So I think that for me, the takeaway with this, the motivation, right, is that you've got to want to do it. So attach it to your why, give it meaning and purpose in your life, and make it something that inspires you. Um, the next one, because I think this is a really good way to look at this too. So I want to just talk about these other two A's. So the other A is it's got to be attainable. And you kind of mentioned this earlier. If you say, all right, I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week, and you don't have the bandwidth to do that, you're not going to succeed. And so that's going to be, it's going to feel disappointing. You're going to kind of experience that as a failure. So making it attainable. And when you talk about the concept of a tiny habit, can you give an example of how tiny a tiny habit can be? You and I have had a lot of conversations about this. So
Yes. I think it depends where you're at. And I think one of the biggest struggles we have is we overdo it, right? And so when you're looking at, say, starting a morning routine and you're wanting to focus, I keep going back to health because that's what a lot of people do. And it's easy to give examples there. But let's say it's health. You've got a year to progress. Start with having a drink of water every morning, right, when you wake up, right? Do that for a week, then tweak and add, a drink of water with a 5-minute stretch, and then tweak and add or take away, and just consider, just like you said, it's a constantly evolving process to evolve your morning into this routine that makes you excited to get out of bed. And it really will happen if you give it the patience and the time to do that, and don't throw the baby out with the bathwater and put everything in on the first day. But really think of it as this like journey that you're evolving into this really amazing routine that inspires you when you get out of bed, makes you want to get out of bed in the morning. It's a really powerful thing to have in your life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. When so this was not this year, but back last fall, I made the decision that I had to start working out again. It had been a long time. I had not been since before I was pregnant. Really,
yeah.
And I had done stuff like go on walks and things like that, but nothing where it was sticking, right? And so I attached it to my why, and then attainable wise, my tiny habit around it was not, I'm going to go to the gym. My tiny habit was, I am going to book it. I'm going to schedule it. I don't even have to make it there, but I'm going to at least write it in my calendar because I know me. I have a much greater chance of actually getting there if it's on my calendar and scheduled as opposed to if it's not. If it's not, then it's not a priority. I don't see it. It's not in my face every day. And so that's all I committed to do. And today was my 65th workout since October 14th. So
I love that.
It's exciting because that's the other thing about the idea that if it truly is something that inspires you and you're liking doing and it starts to build into a routine, it's a concept in from a psychological perspective called behavioral activation, where the more you do it and you get benefits, just kind of intrinsic benefits and extrinsic benefits, depending on what it is, then you're going to want to do more of it.
Yes.
And so it kind of snowballs. And so if you can start to experience those and that reward bit that you were talking about earlier, if you give yourself a reward on the back end, and make it something that is, sensory. So simple and sensory. You want to like give yourself a woohoo, or like, you want to, whatever that is, but you want it to be something that is going to really
Yeah. It's so funny because that really is a key. And when I first kind of started learning that, I was like, that's so stupid. Like, I'm cheering for myself by myself is not going to be a celebration to me. And now every time I'm like doing my little dance, and it just makes me feel better about life, like, I know it sounds when you don't do it, it sounds completely dorky, but it really does. It really does work. It just changes the chemicals in your brain, makes you a little bit excited. So, I don't know. And you said something, I don't know what the third A is, but you said something about scheduling it. And that's one of my routine habits as well, is taking control of my schedule. And once a week, my Sunday routine is to go in and schedule my workouts for the week so they're in my calendar. And I think that is an accountability too. Another A that's really important, attainable, but also accountable, because when you have it kind of worked in and it's kind of getting oversight from other people, I think that also helps to make you follow through with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's it. That's important, that accountability factor. We all do a little bit better when we're accountable to some degree. So,
Yeah.
okay, so we have appealing, make it appealing, make it attainable. And then the last one is activation. So, how do I activate this and put it into action? It can sound really great, it can be realistic and reasonable, but if I don't ever take the steps to make it happen, it's just simply not going to happen. And so, any ideas about actually taking the step to do something that will contribute to this routine development?
Yes, I think it's meet yourself where you're at. Don't, and I think it goes back to attainable to some degree, but knowing you and knowing where you are and what's realistic for yourself, if you can figure that out, and then you just take that first step, right? And hopefully you've made it attainable and simple. And if you're at the point where scheduling a workout at the gym is something you can feasibly do, then that's your step. If you're at a point where you just want to get up a minute earlier and have a drink of water and do a stretch, then that's where you're at. Know where you're at and start there, and then take that first step and hold yourself accountable to it for 30 days. Whatever it is, you'll start to see the benefit. But I think that's where the activation comes in, is giving yourself the presence of mind to notice the benefit, to notice the sense of control and the sense of optimism that you get in your day from that one small step in the morning, and see the traction that gives you throughout the day and the energy that gives you throughout the day. Because when you talk about when you're looking at, a fitness goal, they start to really feel optimistic that first week, because it's the energy and the momentum of having that control and doing something positive for yourself. That's really what matters. And so recognize that even in the small things, and then watch it begin to build. And then the other recommendation I would have is, don't be afraid to change gears. If you start to see a habit not working for you, or that's the whole thing. The routine should be an evolving thing, like we talked about. So don't let it stagnate. Don't let it sit and become something that you're like, oh God, I got to get up and do this again. If that's not working for you and it's not inspiring to you, switch, change, shift directions, and tweak it to where it is, so that you really can build this routine. I've talked about fitness. Maybe if you're trying relationships, maybe it's getting up in the morning and making a cup of coffee for your spouse, and seeing. And the other thing is, knowing your different ways your days start, because we work with a lot of people with crazy schedules in the fire side and the police side and different things like that. And so, having, maybe when you don't have a lot of time, you've got one kind of routine you stick to in the morning. And then on the days you do have more time, maybe that routine is more geared towards social connection with your spouse, and taking longer time to do some of the things that you do in a shorter amount of time on the days you have to get to work. So be adaptable. I'm adding all sorts of A's to his list. Activate it, and then be adaptable with it, so that so you can make it work for you.
Yeah, and my 2 cents on the activation piece is, recognize small actions. A lot of times we're very dismissive of small actions, and so the idea of actually, I opened my calendar, I wrote it down. That's an action. So recognize that as, okay, I did something there, and now I'm going to do something else that I did write down. Yes. But don't forget those smaller actions that set you up for success. Sorry, I have like something flying around.
A nap just fly by me too.
But yeah, recognize those small actions, and do things that are actionable, that do set you up for success. So when I first started, I was scheduling it, but then when I was like, okay, I got to get out of bed really early now. So I started at night pulling my clothes out, which is another action item that helped me just feel more prepared and ready when I did have to put my feet on the floor in the morning.
Yeah.
So anything like that you can do, recognize those.
Expert level, people talk about getting anchors in your day, right? So like, eventually start with something extremely small in the morning that will inspire you. Eventually you get to where you have a morning routine that inspires the beginning of your day. You have a transition from work to home routine, which is really great for our first responders or anyone who has a lot of high stress throughout the day. And then you have a wind down to bed. And those are kind of your 3 anchors of the day that you can always come back to. And they don't have to be complicated. But if you just have a system I inspire my day in the morning here. I come down from work. I find presence, mindfulness, so I can be where my feet are for my family in the evening here. And then I wind down so I can actually get some sleep at night here. Then you've got 3 pretty solid anchors throughout your day that can, just it helps you to promote well-being on a regular basis throughout your life, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And the whole goal is, and you probably want to talk about this, that with habits, the whole goal is the craving piece of it, right? That's what inspires it to become a natural part of what you do. So in order to develop a craving, so like for instance with a habit, stress, right? Smoke a cigarette, feel relaxed. The craving comes from the relaxed feeling. I'm craving that relaxation. So when I start to feel stressed again, I'm going to smoke another cigarette because I get that reward. So when you're looking at positive habits, what you're looking for is some kind of reward at the end of it. And so you want to create a routine that gives you that reward, a sense of excitement about the day, control over the day, a sense of connection to your spouse, a sense of feeling healthy, whatever it is that gives you that feeling that you're like, yes, I can conquer my day. You want to develop a craving for that. So you got to make sure whatever you're picking on this side with the habit actually has that craving piece, has that reward piece to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a really great point because, and that goes back to the behavioral activation, coffee in the morning.
Mhm.
So you get up and you make your spouse a cup of coffee, they're like super excited and thank you so much. And there's lots of gratitude there. And the gratitude becomes the craving piece. Like, oh, that went really good. My spouse, like, that was benefiting my relationship. And now I crave that again. So I do it again, or I try something different the next day, whatever that is. But you continue to build into that.
And I'll tell you that even works if you're not getting along with your spouse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you have a struggling relationship right now, showing your spouse that you have enough respect for them as a human to do that small thing for them puts you in a place where you can have more challenging conversations, just by starting the day out with something small like that.
Yeah, hands down. Okay, what else about routines and not resolutions can you think of?
I think and we've hit on it so many times, but think of it as an adventure. Think of it as a journey. Don't think of it as oh God, I've got to do this because I'm not good enough here. Think of it as here's the person I truly am and who I want to be, and what can I do to inspire my life to get me there. And that inspiration is where the routine lies, and so I struggle with habits so much because I feel like sometimes people make them so mechanical. Mechanical doesn't work to inspire our brains as humans. It just doesn't work. We need things that build connection and that build energy and that build excitement about the world. And because we have so much we have to do, we think we should make our routines about that. Sure, there are some things like, for instance, part of my morning routine is just reconciling my Mint accounts or categorizing so that I keep track of our budget, right? But then I also attach some other things to it that are more inspiring to me. So I get those things out of the way, but I also make sure that my morning routine is something I look forward to. I don't look forward to doing Mint, but I do look forward to my walk with my dog. There are things, and so make sure that you don't go mechanical about it. Make sure you stay on the inspirational, creative side of your brain and think of a way to inspire your life with this routine that you're setting up.
Yeah, and I like that you bring that up. Sometimes the reward is a part of our routine, a walk with the dog. So I do the stuff I have to do, and then I reward myself with the routines I want to do.
Yes.
So think of it that way too. The other thing, and I love that you brought up that word mechanical because you and I, we work with a lot of different people, and I think you and I are probably more similar in how we go about our routines and our daily stuff. But we know people that don't really care for routines and it's just not their thing. And so don't think of this as okay, at 8 o'clock I have to do this, and at 8:15 I have to do this. It's
Don't be
not
rigid with it.
it's not that structured. This is just an idea that you're building in ways to better yourself with what you want. This is all internal. This is how I want my life to be better in this way. How do I make that happen? And you find ways that work for you.
Yes. And there are some people who do phenomenally. Their personality is very structured, right? They do well with that, and that to them is inspiring, right? And there are people who aren't, and that goes back to what we started with, which is knowing yourself and
Yes.
thinking of that as a strength. You know, my husband is just, he's not a habits and routines kind of guy unless you tie it to something social. Well, his strength is leading people, you know, and that, I mean, if we were to look at it and go, he's not structured, and that's a weakness, we would miss the fact that his social connection is what makes him who he is. It makes him really good at what he does. And so for him, he's got to find ways to socially connect through that routine. Whereas I find the opposite, you know, and so it really goes back to knowing who you are and being good with who that is and what strengths that brings to the table and using that to further your routine.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Okay.
just resources before we wrap up that you can look into. The Atomic Habits book is phenomenal at kind of breaking down habits and how to use habit stacking and a lot of other great things. It's a good quick read. And then also there's a great app called Fabulous that is a good app at helping you to build these routines. I would say it tends to be a little more geared towards females than males, just thinking of the population we work with. There's another one, I think if I remember right, it's called Stoic. I'll try to find the link and put it in the thing. And that one's more geared a little bit towards people who don't want as much motivational and inspirational things. They just kind of want to get nitty gritty with it. That's a great app as well. And of course, if you're still searching for that why, the Why Cafe is a great book, or Start with Why by Simon Sinek is another great book that you can dig into.
So funny. So I was like, okay, got to figure it out before we wrap up. The 3 A's is actually James Clear. We talked a lot about him already today. James Clear. And the other thing he talks about, and I don't want to get into the mud with this, but he talks about a hot trigger and a cold trigger. And so when you want it to be actionable, he talks about make it around a hot trigger. It's something that I can do, like me setting my clothes out right by my bed. That would be a hot trigger. I put my feet down, my shoes are right there, right? So you don't want it to be, oh yeah, I think I should go do this, but you can't go do it right then, kind of a thing. So it's something that's important for you. Try to make it around and make yourself successful.
Yeah. I love that.
Anyway, I will end on that, and we'll put some of the resources in the chat. And as always, I just love these conversations.
Me too. Thanks, Cal.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.